What happens when three loud bikers try to humiliate an elderly black veteran in front of his own repair shop? They had no idea who they were messing with. What happened next made them lower their eyes, and much more. Let me tell you something real. It was supposed to be just another quiet morning. Birds chirping, coffee going cold, and the same creaky chair outside Harris Auto Repair where Walter liked to sit and let the world roll by. He was 74, retired but never really stopped. Folks in the neighborhood didn't call him Mr. Fix-It for nothing. Man could fix a carburetor with one eye open and his hands tied. Not that anyone paid for his work anymore. He didn't do it for money. He did it because it felt right. Because the world had enough people taking and not enough giving. This morning, he was under the hood of a rusted-out '98 Toyota Corolla. Belonged to a single mother from down the block, Lisa. 2 kids, full-time job, trying to stay afloat. Brakes were gone, and she didn't have a dime to spare. Walter waved her off with that signature half grin. Your kids ride in this car. That's payment enough. That's just who he was. The sun wasn't even high yet when she drove off, waving with tears in her eyes. Walter stood by the shop door, wiping grease off his hands, thinking about heading back in for his second cup of coffee. That's when he heard them. The low, growling hum of motorcycle engines. Not just loud, but loud in that we're here to be seen kind of way. 3 of them, chrome tanks, black leather vests, tattoos that looked more like statements than style. They parked like they owned the pavement, right up against his shop sign. One of them, tall, pale-skinned, with a smirk carved into his face like it had been there since birth, took off his helmet and stepped off the bike like he was stepping into a courtroom he already owned. Well, look at this, he laughed, scanning the yard. Didn't know they let the History Museum open this early. Walter looked up, didn't say a word. You still wrenching on these clunkers, old man? What, Social Security not hitting this month? His buddies snickered like teenagers at a high school lunch table. One of them pulling out a phone, pointing the camera straight at Walter like this was just content for some cheap joke online. Walter stayed still, calm. But behind that calm was steel. You deaf, Gramps? The smirking one pushed. Or you just don't care. Either way, we're taking over this lot. You can keep your chair. We'll use it to park the bikes. He kicked over a can of motor oil. The splash spread like disrespect. Still no words from Walter, just a look. That same look he gave a drill sergeant back in 1971, when they told him he wasn't fit to lead. That same look he gave a city manager in '89 when they tried to close this very garage down. A look that said, you clearly don't know who you're dealing with, and I'm giving you one chance to walk away with your dignity. But no. The tall one stepped closer, peeled the wooden sign off the front gate, the one that read Harris Auto Repair, Established, 1973, and dropped it face down in the dirt like it meant nothing. Time for new management, Pops. This is biker turf now. And that's when it hit everyone. The tension in the air wasn't from fear. It was from patience. Walter's patience. The kind of patience that only comes from surviving too much. From watching the same cycle of disrespect, decade after decade, from people too young to know better and too foolish to listen. One of the bikers chuckled and muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. He's just another dusty old man playing with tools. What's he gonna do? Call his bridge club? That line? That was the one. That was the exact moment the air shifted. Walter slowly bent down. Not out of weakness, not out of submission, but to pick up that sign they dropped. He brushed the dust off it with his bare hand, stood it back up, and turned, and then he reached into his back pocket. No drama. No sudden moves. Just a phone. He clicked one button. Just one. Held it calmly by his side. No one reacted. Not yet. They thought it was a joke. They thought this was still funny. They had no idea that every tick of that second hand on Walter's wristwatch was taking them one step closer to a lesson they'd never forget. To be continued. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how this story turns. Now, let me tell you something. When a man like Walter Harris doesn't speak, you ought to listen harder. That silence? It ain't weakness. It's calculation. But those boys? They were too busy playing cowboys to recognize the storm building right in front of them. See? Walter had just pressed a button on his phone. One button. Didn't shout. Didn't raise his voice. Just pressed it like he was ordering lunch. The kind of move that says, I've been through this before, and I know exactly how this ends. But those bikers? They were still riding high on their own ignorance, grinning like they just won the Super Bowl of foolishness. You really think someone's coming to help you, old man? Yeah, one of them barked. Maybe your army buddies will roll up in walkers and scooters. Laughter again, loud and sharp, the type of laugh that stinks of overconfidence and zero life experience. Walter just looked at them, calm, chest out. No anger, no fear, just history standing tall. The leader, the tall one with the attitude carved deep into his jawline, swaggered up and got way too close. He poked a greasy finger at Walter's chest. Let me spell it out for you. This spot, it's ours now. Your name, your little shop, this whole corner. It's done. Then, and I mean then, he went too far. He spit on the ground. Not just anywhere. Right near Walter's boots. Even the wind went quiet for a second. Walter didn't flinch, but something shifted in the crowd. Because now they had an audience. Yeah, folks from the corner store had stepped out. A young barber from across the street stopped mid-fade and leaned against his doorframe. A mother holding her daughter's hand stood frozen on the sidewalk, clutching her grocery bags. The air was tight, like the city itself was holding its breath. You know what's funny? Walter finally said, his voice low, clear, with just the slightest rasp, the kind you get from decades of standing up straight and breathing through pressure. All this noise you're making, and you still ain't said nothing that matters. That line? That wasn't just words. That was a line drawn in concrete. The leader scoffed, took a step back, looked around like he owned the moment. You really think we care what some tired old man says? Man, we don't care if you were mayor, pastor, or the Easter Bunny. The two other bikers chuckled, but there was hesitation now. One of them glanced behind. He noticed the growing group of onlookers. Something about their eyes didn't match the noise. They weren't just watching, they were waiting, and right on cue, a low, quiet hum. No engine roar, no tire screech, just the controlled pull-up of a black SUV, windows tinted, no tags. Door opened. 2 boots touched pavement, polished, precise. Then another. Out stepped a broad-shouldered black man in a dark blue suit. No badge visible, no insignia on display, but everything about his walk, the way his coat didn't flap, the way the gravel didn't crunch under his step, screamed authority. And then came the third, a woman, tall, braids, tactical pants, calm face, carrying a tablet, recording everything. The bikers, still pretending to be unbothered. "This your legal team?" one of them joked. "Looks like you brought the church committee." But the leader, he wasn't laughing anymore. Because the man in the suit walked right past everyone, straight up to Walter, and said, loud enough for the whole block to hear, "Sarge, you okay?" Sarge. That word dropped like a cinder block in a still pond. You could feel the shift. The crowd murmured. The woman with the groceries gasped. The barber stepped forward, suddenly standing at full attention. Even the kid on his bike stopped pedaling and just stared. Sarge, the leader, looked back and forth. He didn't get it. He couldn't get it. Walter nodded, barely, and finally spoke again. "Told y'all. You said a whole lot of words. Still didn't say nothing that mattered." The man in the suit turned to the bikers, and this time he was the one with the voice like gravel and thunder. "You're standing on federal property. You've defaced a veteran-owned business. You're on camera. And unless you want to be processed faster than fast food, I suggest you get real quiet. Real quick." The woman beside him tapped her tablet. The footage, all of it, was there, clear as day. One of the bikers let out a quiet, "Oh no," under his breath. Walter just stood still, arms crossed. That's it. That's the moment everything snapped. And if you think the best part already happened, oh no. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for, it's about to unfold. Stay close. See exactly how Walter made them all kneel without lifting a finger. Let me paint this picture for you. 3 grown men who thought they were running the block now stood frozen, jaws tight, backs straight, but confidence leaking out like air from a busted tire. And on the other side, Walter. Still, unshaken, unbothered, unmovable. This wasn't just a comeback. This was a reckoning. The tall agent, the one who called him Sarge like it meant something, and trust me, it did, stepped forward. He didn't need backup. His presence was backup. "You boys know what Title 38 U.S. Code is?" he asked, voice even but edged like steel. Silence. Nothing but 3 confused faces and a 4th biker in the back who suddenly realized he was in the wrong story. "Didn't think so," the agent continued. "Let me help you out. That's the federal law that protects veteran-owned property. Deface it, damage it, disrespect it, and you're looking at mandatory charges, especially when the veteran in question has served longer than you've been alive." He nodded toward Walter like he was introducing a living statue. Now, by this point, the crowd had doubled. Word traveled fast in the neighborhood. Folks were live streaming, whispering names, trying to connect the dots. "That's Mr. Harris, right? Walter from the Navy?" "No, baby. Army. Bronze Star, too." "Wait, is this the Walter who helped train the precinct?" "Yes, that Walter." And right then, one of the bikers, the youngest-looking one, cracked first. He dropped his phone. Literally. It hit the pavement with a thud. His hands went up like he just remembered how consequences work. "I didn't know," he stammered. "We didn't know who he was. We just—" The agent cut him off with a stare. Not a yell. Not a command. Just that hard, measured silence you only get from a man who's written reports about moments like this too many times. Then came the moment. The leader, the same one who kicked over Walter's sign, spat near his boots, and acted like he owned the block, took a knee. He didn't fall. He didn't trip. He chose to kneel. And it burned through every muscle in his face. The other 2 followed, almost like gravity had shifted around them. The agent didn't say a word. Walter did. And let me tell you, it wasn't a speech. He didn't break into some dramatic monologue. That ain't how real men operate. Nah. Walter just walked over, slow and steady, picked up his sign for the 2nd time today, brushed it off, again, and stood it upright, where it belonged. He looked each one of them in the eyes and said, "You came here thinking you could take something from me. But the truth is, you brought me back something I hadn't seen in a long time. A reminder that respect, it ain't about noise. It's about how quiet folks get when they realize they were wrong. No yelling, no threats, just truth. And the street? It went still. Even the wind seemed to pause for a second, like it, too, was standing at attention. The agent turned to Walter, nodded once. "You good, Sarge?" Walter adjusted his jacket, cracked his neck. "Yeah, I'm good now." The black SUV rolled away just as quietly as it had come. No sirens, no headlines, just justice, the kind that doesn't need applause. As the bikers were escorted off the property, gently but firmly, the same folks who stood frozen just minutes ago started clapping. Not loud, not for show, just a slow, proud rhythm, like saying, "We see you." And Walter? He sat back down in his chair, sipped the coffee he never got to finish. It was cold now, but it tasted just fine. Final reflection. That day didn't just restore a name on a sign, it put power back in its place. It reminded everyone watching that dignity doesn't make noise. It stands its ground. And sometimes, when the world forgets who you are, you let the truth do the talking.